Hello and welcome to my new video. As you can see, we are currently outside my property behind my garden, and here you can see one of my problem cases that has been bothering me for years. This is my fence in my garden. Actually, it's not a real fence. It's more like a hedge with wire mesh inside. Everything is very crooked, everything is already very dilapidated, and that's been bothering me for years. I want to tackle this project and have already done some research because this fence also has some problem areas, meaning it has slopes. The inside of the fence is lower than the outside, so basically we have a difference in elevation in this fence. So the project is actually pretty complex. I've already gotten some quotes from relevant companies, janitorial services, and fence construction companies, and this project of mine would probably cost around 5,000 to 15,000 euros. I'm very interested in photovoltaics and solar energy, and I also need a lot of electricity. That's why it would make sense to somehow combine this fence with it, but since I'm not yet completely familiar with it or don't just want to set up a boring standard system, I've brought someone here who can explain it to you a bit better and support me with this. Why don't you introduce yourself?
Hi Mark, my name is Karsten Mailer and I work at Next2Sun, the pioneer of the solar fence.
That sounds pretty interesting. What do you have for me and what can you especially offer here in my situation? You've already had a chance to take a look at my project, and you can see it's quite a big effort I'm planning to undertake here. What nice things do you have to offer me here?
So I took a look at yours. You have quite a steep slope in there, especially towards the end. It goes uphill a bit. Use a point footing foundation with a premium 2.5 meter square post set directly in concrete. We'll take two 10 centimeter steps, then 125, and end up exactly where you want.
I also brought you something nice. I've also made a little drawing of the fence here. We can take a look at it together in a moment. That's about what I imagined. Now tell me, what makes your system special? Who exactly are you? And where does your expertise come from? And why is your fence better than other fences? Or better than a fence where I just attach a module to it?
Where do we come from? From agri-photovoltaic. Agri-photovoltaic means we're out in the fields, building megawatt systems on 10 or 20 hectares with 2 rows, mounting systems, and steel. There are two things. A, it can't cost anything, and B, it has to work like crazy. And that's what our fence does. We've been working on this one topic for over 12 years, only on the vertical bifacial fence system. We're also building 17.4 megawatts at Fraport on Frankfurt Airport grounds next to Runway West, not just in the fields. We also build systems for companies and municipalities, 100 to 400 kilowatt peak, when rooftop installation isn't possible. And we build those with our own installation team. That means I do the planning and then our installation team comes and builds it, and then you have it there ready to use. Everything from a single source. And then we had the idea, man, what works on a large scale can also work on a small scale at home. So let's take this system and let's develop a premium fence. Let's be honest, the agri-frame works and lasts. That's good, but it might not suit the garden, which should look nicer. That's why we developed the premium fence. The premium fence is a square steel post where we use exactly the same modules, the same technology, just a bit nicer looking.
And where exactly is, for example, because I know for sure this will come up in the comments, the advantage of your fence compared to a normal fence where I just screw on any modules? Especially from a structural point of view, because that's something people often tend to forget.
Structural integrity is a crucial point, and it's also my main focus. Because we say the fence has to hold and the fence has to be stable. You have to imagine it like this. When you build a fence like that with a closed surface, you're basically building a sail. And with these modules, with our own developed Next2Sun modules, of course, you also have weight. They weigh 35 kilos. So you already have a closed sail with quite a high own weight. So you really have to be careful with the foundation, with the structural stability. And we tested our fence system in the wind tunnel. We say up to wind load zone 3 for 450 kilos of pressure per square meter. We can withstand that. That's how it must be, and it must last. Once the fence is up, it has to stay. That's why we only use steel. But we also do this for ecological reasons, because the ecological footprint of aluminum is simply larger than that of steel. The steel comes from Germany, it's galvanized in Germany, and it's powder coated in Germany, either in Reichsausschuss für Lieferbedingungen 7016 or in any color you want. And what makes us special is our own module development. We do nothing else, as I said, except a vertical fence system with bifacial modules. Now we have our own modules, each with 480 watts. Our bifaciality is about 95%, give or take 5%. We're keeping it open, aiming for 100%. That makes the orientation of our fence almost irrelevant. Of course, the fence should run north-south and face east-west to catch the morning and evening sun. This method gives us 20% more yield than a rooftop system. Our modules deliver 1,250 kilowatt hours per kilowatt peak of installed capacity with perfectly aligned fences. With perfect alignment, our fence yields 1,250 kilowatt hours per kilowatt peak installed. That means if you had 10 meters of fence, we could install 1.92 kilowatt peak of capacity. This fence would generate 2,400 kilowatt hours of electricity per year under optimal conditions. That's when we need electricity, in the morning and evening.
Exactly, and that leads us to the next point, which will likely come up in the comments. What about the payback period? I mean, the whole project is quite expensive. What can you tell us about that? Do you have any experience reports on this? What should you consider about the payback period for such a fence, and what are the advantages?
When it comes to the payback period, there's one thing you need to keep in mind right away. You have to use the electricity yourself. If you use the electricity yourself, but that's also well known in the industry, or at least it should be known to the user or the customer, a cost-effective fence pays for itself in 5 or 6 years. Of course, when it comes to your project, we have to be honest about it. If you add L-shaped stones, more concrete, a curb, then close it at the bottom and put in a little gate and so on. Yeah, sure, that makes it a bit more expensive, that's clear, but then it's also a nice fence. And we go to the market and say, this is the fence that pays for itself. And when it pays for itself, for example, our fence power plant, 10 meters of fence with 2.7 kW of storage. Ideally, it pays for itself in 5 years, but lasts 30 years, since there's a 90% performance guarantee for that period. And I actually have something else to add. If within those 30 years, the fence, that's a linear performance guarantee. After 30 years, it still has to be at 90. If it doesn't have that, then we'll come and replace the module.
And that brings us right to the point of amortization, which is something I want to mention to you again. I actually want to rebuild the fence completely. That means I'll have the cost for the fence no matter what I put there, whether it's a photovoltaic fence or something else. The cost for the concrete, the cost for the posts, I'll have those anyway. And here I now have the chance to get either part or, with a bit of luck, maybe even all of it back through the generation. And then I have another question for you. How does this fence work? We have individual solar modules here, photovoltaic modules. Are they all connected in series, or what kind of system are they connected with? Do you offer storage, a balcony power plant, or a full photovoltaic system? What exactly are you offering?
So what we offer is, well, let's start from the beginning. Of course, it's wired just like a regular photovoltaic system. You work with different strings there. If we use our fence power plant with anchor storage, you get individually wired modules across 4 maximum power point tracking carriers. Otherwise, it functions like a standard photovoltaic system. The photovoltaic modules have MC4 connectors and are directly connected to the inverter. And that's it.
So let's get to the crucial question. How much does a meter of fence in the standard version cost here roughly?
The standard solar fence, let's just do a rough calculation now so we have an approximate value, because the more distance I have, the cheaper it gets, of course. I'll just give you the rough price per running meter based on 30 meters. The price per running meter for the standard solar fence is already around 150 to 160 euros per running meter. That's less than some nice fences. And the premium fence in the galvanized version is at 260 euros per running meter. That's about how much it will cost you. It then reaches the premium square, where we stack 2 modules. If we powder coat it with slats inside, you're looking at 500 euros per running meter. That's what I just mentioned. The more elaborate I build the fence and the nicer it's supposed to look, the more work goes into it. And then it gets a bit more expensive, but not much more. And if we look, how much does a wrought iron fence cost? How much does a double rod mat with a braided channel cost? You're looking at about the same price.
But of course, without photovoltaic generation accordingly.
That's right.
And of course, not as massively.
Not nearly as massive. As I said, we build only with steel, and the bristle wall thickness is 3 to 3.5 millimeters. That's built for eternity.
Then I have another question. What happens next? What else do you offer? Do you only sell the fence, meaning the individual parts, or can you also buy the complete fence, including installation from you? Or what do you need to have if you want to install a fence like that?
Do it yourself. Enthusiasts can buy all the parts from us, including the complete steel construction. That includes the posts, crossbars, all installation parts, and the modules. The wiring inside the fence system runs through the crossbars and the posts. That's what we deliver. And then if you say, okay, I want to have the fence built for me, then we have a partner network all across Germany. These are professional fence builders, and they build everything around the fence you can imagine. Doors, gates, mailbox systems, everything.
That sounds great, Carsten. So I'd say let's just start this project here at my place. And of course, there will be a lot of videos about this as well. So let's just start the project. And before we start the project, I know exactly that you have a lot of questions for us right now. Of course, that's not a problem. Please put them down in the comments. Since we're starting a little video series here, we can address these questions in the other videos as well. Or we're also happy to make another video like this one just to answer your questions. That way, you'll get more background feedback and maybe you'll be able to plan your project much more easily. Do you have anything else you'd like to share with us, Carsten?
Yeah, so there's one thing that's new. Good thing you brought it up, Mark. We will soon have our latest product, the fence power plant with integrated storage. That means 10 meters of fence as part of the balcony power plant with 2.7 kilowatt hours of storage, starting soon.
Of course, that sounds great now. That means you can, of course, handle everything within the framework of the balcony power plant or the balcony power plant regulations. So you don't have to argue with the respective energy provider, and you can simply set up the fence without having to climb onto the roof anywhere for the balcony power plant. Then I have another question. Do you have any special projects or highlights that you can share with us here so we can see what else you do?
Yes, well, we don't just build the balcony power plant or the 10-meter fence power plant, but as I said, we also go out into the fields. We're at Freyport with 17.4 megawatts, a really awesome project. But we also do parking lot photovoltaic. For example, we have a subsidiary in Japan that installs our system vertically at a height of 4 meters in parking lots. That's a typhoon area, yet nothing gets blown away. And we build wherever such a system is required around the world. Anyone who asks us should expect an answer. We go there, check it out, and then build it. And it doesn't matter where or how.
So, and with that, we've pretty much reached the end of the video. I want to thank Carsten here for all the interesting explanations. What's important for you, of course, if you have any questions about the project, just leave them in the comments below. That way we can include them in the next videos. I'll say goodbye and we're signing off.
Thank you, Mark. We'll see each other soon. See you later. Bye.